All right, get ready for this one because this deep dive is intense. We're going deep into a police sting operation. A suspected online predator is the target. And we're going to be looking at this YouTube video. It's from Midwest Safety, and it's called The Moment a Child Predator Gets Caught. And it's just raw footage of this crazy situation. This all went down in West Bend, Wisconsin.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I really find compelling.
Yeah.
You know, we're not watching some polished documentary here. It's real, it's unfiltered, and it gives us a really unique perspective. We see how law enforcement operates when things get really tense.
Exactly. And I think what I find fascinating is that we really get to see the psychology of everyone involved, both the officers and the suspect, how they react, how they size each other up. It's like watching a game of chess play out in real life.
Absolutely, and the stakes, well, they couldn't be higher.
Yeah.
This case starts with a missing 15-year-old girl. She's from Logan County, Kentucky. And those first few minutes of the video are just electric. The Wisconsin officers get the alert, and they're racing against the clock.
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly things start to come together. Phone pings, a note from the girl. All of that leads them to the house of a registered sex offender. They know this guy has been talking to her on Facebook. They've got their suspect. But then the question is, how do they approach him?
And that's where the tactical expertise comes into play. I mean, they could have just barged into the house, but think about it for a second. You're dealing with someone who's probably on edge already. Confronting them directly like that could just make things worse. It could escalate the situation and put the girl in even more danger.
Yeah, not to mention they need solid evidence if they're going to make an arrest. It's this delicate balance between, urgency and strategy.
Exactly. You need a controlled environment.
Yeah.
They need a chance to watch the suspect and gather evidence. And they can't risk spooking him.
Yeah.
So that's why they decide to go with the traffic stop. They see his vehicle leaving the residence, and that's when they make their move.
It is a real heart-stopping moment. The suspect and the young girl are both in the car, and then the officers initiate the stop. But what I thought was really interesting was how they approach him. It's almost disarmingly casual.
Well, it's a deliberate tactic. It's brilliant, too. They are experts at building rapport, even in these high-pressure situations.
Yeah.
Remember, their goal is to keep the suspect talking, get him to lower his guard. They need to gain his trust, even if it's just for a few minutes.
It's true. I was really struck by how closely they were watching his every move. His body language, his tone of voice. They weren't just listening to his words. They were looking for any little sign of deception.
Exactly. It's like a poker game. The officers are trying to read his tells.
Yeah.
They're looking for any inconsistencies between his story and their gut feeling.
Yeah, you can almost see the wheels turning in their heads as he starts to spin this web of lies. He says he's a friend of the girl and her mother, and then weaves this elaborate story about family drama. He says he needed to get her away from a bad situation. He even claims they're on their way to his sister's for Thanksgiving.
And here is where we see those classic grooming techniques. Predators often want to seem like the good guy. They want to be seen as the rescuer, the one who understands. They prey on the girl's vulnerability, and then they use her emotional state to justify their actions.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's almost textbook manipulation. He's trying to make the situation seem less serious, like he's doing the right thing. But then comes that pivotal moment. They ask him if the girl brought a bag.
That's such a clever tactic. It sounds like a simple question,
Yes.
but it's designed to get a response.
Yeah.
A response that could reveal a lot more about what's going on. And of course,
Yeah.
they find her stuff in the car.
And it isn't just a backpack with some clothes in it. During the search of the impounded car, they find a pregnancy test and a vibrator. That's when the suspect's facade really crumbles.
The tension in that moment is just palpable. The officers know that they stumbled onto something much bigger than just a missing person case. This is where the investigation really takes a turn. And from here on out, the setting changes completely. We move from the roadside, the traffic stop, we go into the police station. That really controlled environment, the interrogation room.
Yeah, totally different atmosphere in this part of the video. It's stark, kind of clinical. You can feel that the intensity is just going way up. Like the whole psychological game has shifted to a new level.
And don't forget, they found some pretty incriminating stuff in the car. The pregnancy test, the vibrator, those things just don't match up with his story. Like, he's saying nothing inappropriate happened. The officers are trying to take apart his story piece by piece.
It's crazy how he just sticks to his story, though. He denies doing anything wrong. I was really surprised that he kept trying to shift the blame, saying the pregnancy test and the vibrator belonged to the girl, like she was trying to frame him or get back at her mom or something.
That's classic deflection. It says a lot about the mindset of these predators. They often just don't have any remorse or empathy. Instead of taking responsibility, they try to manipulate everyone. It's like they're living in an alternate reality. They're the victim.
It's really unsettling to watch. He just keeps saying that he's a friend. He says he was just trying to help the girl with some emotional problems she was having. But the officers have seen this all before. They know he's lying. He's twisting the truth to fit his own little narrative.
It is impressive to watch the officers, though. They stay so calm and composed throughout the entire interrogation. They don't fall for any of his emotional games. Instead, they just keep focusing on the evidence and exposing all the holes in his story.
Yeah, there's this one point where they ask him straight up about their relationship. They want to know if they ever talked about being together romantically. And his answer, chilling.
Oh yeah, I remember that part. He tries to avoid answering the question altogether. He says something like, I think I'd like to plead the fifth at this point.
That's a huge red flag, right? He knows that if he admits to having any kind of romantic or sexual interest in a minor, that's it for his case.
Absolutely, he's cornered. And he's just trying to protect himself. But when he tries to avoid the question, it just makes things worse for him.
And the officers are relentless. They bring up his history as a registered sex offender. They remind him about all the evidence they found. They're slowly closing in on him, building this really solid case.
The tension just keeps ratcheting up. You can sense the frustration from the officers. It's a really sensitive situation, and the clock is ticking. They're determined to uncover the truth.
It's this constant back and forth, like a verbal tug of war. The suspect is desperately trying to deny everything, and the officers are meticulously documenting every word he says, every inconsistency, every little slip-up.
You know, it is amazing. They managed to walk this line between trying to build rapport and keeping their professional distance. They never lose their composure. They never threaten him or try to intimidate him. Their whole approach is just letting the evidence speak for itself.
Yeah, it's definitely clear that he's starting to understand how serious this is. He asks if he's under arrest, asks if he can leave, but the officers aren't ready to let him go yet.
They tell him that he's not free to go, that they're still gathering information. It's a calculated move. They need to keep him talking, to keep him engaged while they get those last few puzzle pieces.
They start pressing him on some specifics, asking about the stops they made driving from Kentucky, about his online chats with the girl. It's like they're slowly peeling away his lies.
And then they hit him with something big. They mentioned that he drove right past his apartment. He saw the police cars waiting there. That little detail speaks volumes. It shows what his mindset was at the time.
He was trying to get away from them, trying to buy himself some time. It's a tiny detail, but it's pretty clear that he knew what was going on, and he was trying to avoid the cops.
By the time the interrogation's over, it's obvious the officers have enough. They've shown everyone that he's been lying. They've gathered more than enough evidence to charge him. This is a serious crime. But this is just the beginning. It doesn't end here. Because they crossed state lines, went from Kentucky to Wisconsin, the case goes federal.
And this is where things get really serious. This isn't just a local case anymore.
Nope, not at all. He took that girl across state lines, Kentucky, all the way to Wisconsin. That means this case is going federal. The FBI is going to be involved now, and that means he's facing some serious time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. One decision, one little act, things escalate so fast, it's like dominoes.
He might have thought he was just going for a drive, but that drive just landed him in a whole lot of trouble. With the feds, no less. Using a computer to entice a minor into unlawful sexual activity. That's a big deal.
You said earlier that he ends up pleading guilty, right? I'm curious, what was the strategy there?
Well, pleading guilty, especially in a case like this where they've got all that evidence, it can be a way to try and get a shorter sentence. It's a gamble, but it's a calculated risk.
Right.
In this case, he pleads guilty to that first charge, and then the prosecution drops the second charge, the one about his sex offender status.
So what happened in the end?
He got 15 years in federal prison, plus 10 years of supervised release once he's out. That's a long time, and it shows how seriously they're taking this crime and the harm it can cause to the victim.
15 years. Yeah, it really makes you think. Online predation, this isn't a victimless crime. The effects on the victim, her family, her whole future, that damage lasts.
It does, and you're right. It shows that the justice system is taking these crimes seriously. They're making a statement. This kind of behavior won't be tolerated.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. I feel like I understand so much more now. How these predators think, the sneaky ways they manipulate their victims, and how tough it is for law enforcement to catch them.
It's a reminder for all of us. We can't afford to be naive when it comes to online safety. We have to be careful. Educate ourselves and our kids about the dangers out there. We have to give them the tools to recognize these situations. and avoid them.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I'm taking away from all of this. Knowledge is power. The more we know about their tactics, the better we can protect ourselves and everyone we care about.
And remember, there's help out there if you need it. If you're worried about online exploitation, there are organizations like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the Cybertip Limit. They're there to help.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a heavy topic. But it's so important that we talk about these things. Stay safe, everyone. And remember, knowledge is our best defense.